you, share some names, how your day's going. We'll just get started. It's on? Okay. Okay, should we get started? Bismillah, Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalam ala rasulillah, wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa barak wa sallam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. So we're going to jump into a new hadith today. We're going to be looking at hadith number 16. So if people want to pull it up, the text is called the Arba'in Nawawi. It's the 40 hadith of Imam Nawawi, rahmallah. We've been looking at it for a while. I think more than a year and a half. Right? Yeah. And so we're on hadith 16. The text actually has 42 hadith in total. And these 40 hadith collections, like we talked about them when we first started, kind of categorized on different topics based off of prophetic tradition that emphasizes the merit of collecting 40 hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. And so we're going to jump into a new one today. People want to pull it up. Hadith number 16, narrated by Abu Huraira radiallahu anh. And it's still building off of like this section of the text that's talking about ethics and character. So the last one that we looked at talked about a few different things, right? Man kana yu'minu billahi wal yawmil akhir falyakul khayran aw liyasmut. That whosoever is believing in Allah on the last day, let them utter good or be silent. Whosoever is believing in Allah on the last day, let them honor their neighbors, and whosoever is believing in Allah on the last day, let him honor his guest. So we're going to move into this next hadith. Can somebody read it, the English and the Arabic? You can read either or. You don't have to read both. And did you have your hand raised? Yeah, go for it.
On the authority of Abu Hurairah, may Allah be pleased with him, that the Messenger of Allah, peace be upon him, said, "Let him who believes in Allah and the last day speak good or keep silent, and let him who believes in Allah and the last day be generous to his neighbor, and let him who believes in Allah and the last day be generous to his guest."
Thank you. So we're going to do the next one now. So if you can read number 16. Do you have 16? The next one?
Wait, isn't this 60? Ooh.
That was 15.
Wait. Oh, would you type in 40?
Do you have it, Nazi?
Oh my God.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Wait, my phone glitched. I did have the 16. Sorry.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I didn't realize until after I started reading that it was.
It's okay. Read it.
Okay. On the authority of Abu Hurairah, may Allah be pleased with him, a man said to the Prophet, "Give me advice." The Prophet, peace be upon him, said, "Do not get angry." The man asked repeatedly, and the Prophet answered each time, "Do not get angry."
Jazakallah khair.
Sorry, my phone glitched. I had the right one.
It's okay, no worries. Yeah. Can somebody read the Arabic? Yeah, go for it.
عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه أن رجلا قال للنبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أوصني قال لا تغضب تردد مرارا قال لا تغضب رواه البخاري.
Jazakallah khair. So we've already kind of discussed who Abu Hurairah radiallahu an is in terms of he was introduced as a narrator of previous hadith. So we don't have to get into it so much. And in terms of what this hadith is calling to, it's pretty like straightforward. Awsini the companion asks the Prophet ﷺ for advice, and the Prophet responds to him, La taghdab, do not get angry. And he keeps asking him the question, and the Prophet keeps responding, La taghdab, la taghdab. There's different variations of this hadith, and it comes in different narrations that can give an indication that either the Prophet was giving this advice around anger at different scenarios or to different individuals. In all of them, the narrators are different, but the person that is asking the question isn't identified. So they're not necessarily saying that so and such asked this question specifically, but they're saying a person came and asked this question or asked of the Prophet ﷺ, Al-Sini. In one narration, the companion asked the Prophet ﷺ, tell me something that I can live by that is simple and it is not easy to forget, right? Like he can keep front of mind. Do you see what I mean? So before we get into the particulars of it, when you read hadith, you want to be able to extrapolate as much of it as you can, meaning and lessons from this. So before we jump into like the parts that have to deal with anger and so much that's written in the Quran and the hadith about anger, the first thing that we have here after we've kind of looked at the narrator, and you can look at previous recordings because we've talked about who Abu Huraira is very detailed. The person is coming to the messenger of God, and the first thing that he's asking the Prophet is what? He's saying, Awsini, like give me advice, give me counsel. Do you see? It's not that it's arbitrary what the actual advice is, but this isn't a part of the hadith you want to overlook, that a person was coming simply on the pretense of seeking advice and counsel. Do you know? Like, give me something that I can live by. Do you see what I mean? The particularities of it are mentioned in different hadith in different ways. People come and ask the Prophet for advice and counsel, and he gives them different like advices and counsels. But beyond the specifics, la taghdab, here, the first thing we want to kind of reflect on, why is it important that the person is asking for advice? Do you get what I mean? And he's coming as a specific individual, right? Al-Sini, right? The ya at the end is saying, like, counsel me, advise me, right? Give to me some advice. And the nature of this relationship was one that had that aspect: advisement, counsel, mentorship. Do you know? Not something to undermine necessarily, but why is that important? Do you get what I'm saying? In the understanding of our own relationship to growth, towards kind of knowledge acquisition, towards mentorship, whatever it might be, this is something that was a salient characteristic of these people, radiallahu anhum ajma'in. They would go and try to get advice. What does that mean? Like, why is that important? So just more people are trickling in, we can turn to the precedents around us so we can get to a mode where we're starting to think a little bit, right? After a long day of class and work and whatever else. Maybe we didn't do anything today. And that just creates even more of a need to jumpstart like our brains. I don't know about everyone else, but I'm like ready to take a nap. So I think if we start talking a bit, it'll get us kind of in a mode. Why is this an important thing, right? Understanding this notion of seeking advice from an individual or multiple individuals. Like, why is this something we don't want to gloss over and spend some time reflecting on? If we can turn to the persons next to us and talk about it a bit, and then we'll come back and discuss. If you don't know the names of the people sitting next to you, exchange some names. Like this part, before we talk about the anger part, Al-Sini, like he's asking for advice or counsel. In another hadith, tell me something that I can live by, that's easy, that I won't forget. Do you know? Like something that I can act upon. Do you know what I mean? Why is this an important part of the hadith? Let's talk about it for a few minutes, then we'll come back and discuss and jump into it a little bit more. But go ahead. And as you're talking about that, right? Like these are hadith, this section of the text that's on character. How does seeking advice have to do with character? Do you know? Like how does that have to do with ethics and character and value? But go ahead. Guys, can you move in this way so that people who are praying will like move to this side? If you guys move in like on this side, it'll make sure people don't have to kind of get stuck near the door. Usman, if you guys want to move over here, just so people don't start praying near the doorway when they join you, that'll be helpful. Yeah.
Whatever aspect of it, physically, any other aspect, yeah, in terms of what it shows. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, yeah, you can't definitely take it unless you have the right answer. Something may give you a slip. I think that's ever more prevalent today in terms of getting advice from just because I think you obviously know you get advice like this from either side, all right or left or all right. Figuring a way, being very determined, thinking more way come into this.
Okay, so why is this important? Right? The companion comes and asks for advice. Like, why is that a big deal? Alcini, like, give me counsel, advise me. What are we talking about?
It shows you like character-wise, like humility, openness to be communal and problem solving, opening yourself up.
How does it show humility?
By I think you have to let go of your ego a little bit to be open to hearing a different perspective or saying that, hey, I might not know the best thing to do here. Can you help me? So in that way.
Okay, great. Yeah, other thoughts? Why is this important and not something to gloss over?
I think it's important because, like, around that time, the prophet was chosen to be the prophet. I think they were not going to get people, so I'm going to learn some different things. So it's like, I'm not to give it myself to that learn some different things. So, I think it was also enough humanity and that is because I think there's a lot of things in the world that can teach humanity, but it's important for us to be humanity and actually see
Great. Any other thoughts? Why is this important? Yeah.
And we also talked about not only receiving advice, but getting like the right advice. So, of course, for this example, Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, that's the example for plenty of advice. And then if you were to get advice from or asked advice, some people may not have the right answer or they may mislead you. So picking the right person in terms of looking at their qualities and their characteristics is also important to take into consideration.
Other thoughts? Yeah.
Wasn't it also advice given like kind of as a like precaution rather than advice given like after an event happened? So his companion was like seeking growth and knowledge like before kind of like something a bad event happened for him to kind of like have to reconcile it.
Yeah. I mean, everything everyone's saying makes sense, right? But the pondering and reflection on it is to get us to a place that then also says, how do I engage in advice seeking as well as advice giving? Because there's two aspects to this: the person requesting the advice and the person that is giving the advice. And the giving of the advice here is something that's cemented in text that is going to likely be passed on to tons of people throughout time. Do you know what I mean? So the Prophet is speaking to an individual as numerous people are recounting this hadith, and also over 14 centuries of lived experience, people are reflecting on like the meaning of this. It's really hard to get ahead in Islam if you try to make it a solo venture. Do you know? It doesn't mean it's not possible, but to be able to benefit from other people's learnings and teachings, to be in a place where it's not categorically limited to things that are quote unquote sacred. The advancement of numerous demographics in like the world we live in here is rooted in quite often the establishment of well-run mentorship kind of circles and cycles. Do you know? I teach at this university. Objectively speaking, my white male students in large part have mentors. Most like women, people of color do not. Do you know? When you have somebody that you can turn to, that you're willing to actually hear what they say and receive it, not just like shoot it down or like push it away, it can create opportunities for different modes of advancement. Like, why? Well, one, the humility aspect can go in both directions, but also on the other end of it, people like to be asked what they think, right? I work at a university, right, for the time being, right? And here, there's like thousands of people who are super brilliant and super intelligent. Nobody ever asks them anything. They spend years of their life. No offense to anybody who's an academic in the room, right? And if you worked on a dissertation or PhD, it's like, who read this thing that I wrote for 7 years of my life? Do you know? And people come and ask me questions all the time in my office and about whatever kind of topics you might think someone would ask. And a good chunk of the time, I tell them, go and talk to all these people that nobody's talking to. And they have the knowledge base and the skill set to be able to help you build out your business or your startup or whatever venture you were kind of building out as a nonprofit. You know, the only time people go to ask somebody something in large part is when things are really messed up. Do you know? And then you are the only one that can then take the advice that's being given to you. So if you go and you ask somebody, unless you're just saying to them, do it for me, right? Which is very different. The recipient nature of it requires me to then think, why don't I take the advice and the counsel when it's easy and also when it's difficult, right? Like when Allah is instructing me, even when I don't want to hear it, do you know? But there's two aspects here: the one seeking the advice and the one giving the advice. And the giving of the advice can't be devoid of the fact that someone's going to actually take the advice that you give to them. So these hadith overlap, right? من كان يؤمن بالله واليوم الآخر فليقل خيرا أو ليصمت. That whosoever believes in Allah on the last day, let them speak good or be silent. Someone comes and asks, you got to know what you're talking about when you're kind of responding in accord. Do you see what I mean? Does that make sense? That's a part of it we can discuss, but a priority here is, who can you go to seek advice from yourself? What is like a characteristic of somebody that should be giving you advice, counsel, actual like mentorship in some capacity? It's not just throwing like information at you, right? There's a difference between a professor and a teacher. And there's a difference between an advisor and a professor. You know what I mean? People can just help you memorize things. Who's helping you to learn how to make choices and how to make decisions and navigate things? We're going to talk about it potentially this week, but maybe next week more so, when we get into the part of the hadith that's about la taghdab, because the hadith says the person kept asking the question again and again. Some people would say is because he wanted something different from the advice on on not being angry, do you know? And the specificity perhaps was that this person had anger issues, or the general understanding was that most people don't deal with anger really well. Do you know? They make stupid decisions when they're angry. They say all kinds of stuff when they're angry. They're not in control when they're angry. Do you know? But the nature of it coming again and again, and why the prophet is responding with specifics of this, we can talk about it in more detail next time. But one of the interpretations is that he doesn't want to deal with the fact that he's got an anger issue, right? But advice isn't just given in a way that is, hey, let me sugarcoat this for you, or only tell you what's going to make you feel good about yourself. Spiritual growth can't happen if there's nothing to improve upon. Do you see what I mean? Who's the person in your life that can help keep you in check? That's going to be able to tell you when you're being an idiot. That's going to help you recognize that like you're doing things that are creating harm and hurt, not even just for others, but for yourself. And if I need to have tailor-made always feedback, criticism, advice, because I'm not able to overcome certain things, the obstacles that are within me, Allah will potentially keep bringing me back to, not for any other reason other than my benefit. That's like a real hard way to live life. That I'm always in a place where I'm on edge because my self-deprecation has given shaitan an ease in being able to have me see what's not there rather than what's fully there. And there's a futility in the pursuit of perfection that is not a reason as to why we were created. There's no part of the Quran that said Allah made you so that you would be perfect. But if anything, it says you are inherently going to make mistakes. Who helps you to be in a place where you're willing to actually hear what they have to say? And it goes to this idea that he's speaking to the prophet of God. And even one of the interpretations of the repetitive nature of it is that it's hard for him to hear that he's got an anger problem. Do you get what I mean? Does that make sense? I have to build within the course of my existence somebody who's not just a yes person to me. That's going to always tell me whatever I do is right all the time. I have a friend, his name is Riyadh. He moved to Atlanta. He got married recently, mashallah. If any of you have ever met Riyadh, he's like this tall Trinidadian guy. When I ask people here after Jummah, like, how does Jummah go? That was so great. It was so nice. When I ask Riyadh, I'm like, hey, man, what was that like? He'll tell me, like, hey, here's what made sense. Here's what did not make sense. When I go to him and ask him for advice and I like open up to him and make myself vulnerable, he's going to validate parts of me that at the same time, he's going to also tell me, this is what you're doing to contribute to the dynamic. You see what I mean? Sometimes people are just like blunt and we need like ego checks. I was speaking at a retreat in the Bahamas and I gave the Jummah khutbah and a lot of people like very kind in what they were saying. And then this man came up to me afterwards and with a big smile on his face, he was like, that didn't make any sense at all. I was like, oh, walaikum salam. And he was like, what were you even talking about? You said one thing and another thing and another thing. And at the end of that, he like smiled at me and left. And then the next morning at breakfast, he came up to me, he gave me a thumbs up from across the room. And then in front of like the waffle maker machine, he gave me a big hug like we were best friends, right? That's fine, you know. But in understanding, like I have a friend who's a friend because I'm also willing to understand his benefit in my life is such that he's willing to tell me things in a way that he knows how I will receive them, even if I don't want to hear it. Do you see? The Prophet has companions that he gets counsel from. He doesn't know what to do after the Treaty of Hudaybiyah. People are not listening to him because he has agreed to not do Hajj that year. And he tells all the people, we're not doing Hajj. And this is after they've gone to Medina. They're coming back to Mecca after a long time. Many of them have not been in Mecca for years. It's their homeland. They left everything behind and they're so close. And the Prophet brokers a treaty with the Mushrikeen, part of which says, we're not doing Hajj. He tells people, slaughter your animals, remove your ihram, we're going home. Nobody does anything. He walks into a tent and Salama is in the tent. And he says, like, they're not listening to me. And she says, you do it yourself. If they see you do it, they will then do it. The Prophet is not beyond taking advice from people. And so he does what she says. And he does it. They see him do it. They follow suit. And then they move forward. Do you get what I mean? Who do you go to for advice? Somebody that you're going to actually be willing to listen to what they have to tell you, even if it's difficult. There cannot be improvement without something to improve upon. That's just not possible. Do you know? And the ease that would ideally come, that I get to the base of the mountain and then I just will myself to the top without taking steps up. Nobody climbs a mountain like that. Do you see? The nature of these people who are with the Prophet of God is that they want to move forward. They want to grow. Have you ever gone to somebody and just said to them, hey, give me some advice, advise me, give me some counsel, like teach me something in a way that is not like without context, do you know? So if I'm at a conference or a lecture and some random person comes up to me and says to me, like, can you give me some advice? Initially, my hesitancy is, I don't really know anything about you. Do you know? But I'm the type of person who is going to say to someone, here's my email. Like, don't text me because I'm bad at responding to texts, right? If you give me advice that says, I texted you and you didn't respond, I'm going to say to you, yes, you are correct. Like, I'm really bad at that. Do you know? I went from having one email address since I was 18, my NYU one, and the last month to I have now 4 email addresses. One I don't even know how to get into. And I have to revamp how it is that my work kind of scenario habitually is for me to be able to catch up to things. If somebody says to me, it took you like a week to respond, it used to only take you like a few hours to respond to an email. I was a lot better at responding to emails, but I got to like get up to speed. My ego will rise up and say all kinds of things to deflect what exactly? You don't know how busy I am. I got all this stuff going on. We're building this and doing that. Or it's like, yeah, you're right. I got to figure this thing out. Otherwise, I'm going to build bad habits that are going to continue. You see? And I have to be in a place where advice manifests in different forms. So I can turn to people around me and I can say, I need your help with this. And if I don't overcome whatever's existing inside of me, and I think I have to do it all by myself and it can only be done by me, and that's what's worthwhile, or that mindset existing inwardly, who are you to tell me about who I am? This is me. I know myself better than you do. Well, that's not like a recipe for success either. Do you get what I mean? Or I acknowledge that this is something that I have. I'm just not going to work on it, right? How does that make any sense? Do you know what I mean? Right? I know I have this thing that I probably shouldn't be doing. It's creating a challenge in my life and in someone else's life. There's certain things that fundamentally we do not have, quote unquote, like a solution for. Certain things are just managed, right? People have like wellness conditions, emotional conditions. Some days are going to be easier, some days are going to be difficult. And the, inshallah, lighter days will increase beyond like the heavier days. That's not what we're talking about here, do you know? And step number one is me figuring out, like, who can I go to that I have that kind of relationship with? And what are the kind of characteristics that they have to embody for me to be comfortable in being able to say, hey, man, like, help me get to the destination I want to get to. Tell me the things that I do well, that I can do better. Point out to me the things that are going to help me kind of get to the impact I want of contentment. The Prophet told some of his companions that, like, you should never be in charge of things. You imagine what that must be like experientially. If there are two people and one has to lead, you should not be the one that leads. He's not trying to be mean, but what are you setting up a person for in terms of expectations? Do you see? And he's got to know that person well enough to talk to him like that. And that person has to know the Prophet well enough to be able to receive that information. Do you get what I'm saying? Al-Sini, the beginning part of this, is not something to undermine. So step number one, what I'd like for you to think out individually, just with some stillness, not across. Who do you go to for advice? And why? And if the answer is nobody, also why? And I want you to think about that in the standpoint of, like, objective relation to categories of myself. I can have advisors in different ways. My car is broken. I'm going to go ask somebody who knows how to fix cars. Like, is this guy ripping me off? Do you know? I want to advance in my degree or my training or my job. There's individuals that I would go and ask. Who do you go that helps to advise you on the state of your inward? Not just abstractly, not a video or a soundbite. Like people who care about your heart and help you to remember that your heart is the most important part of you. But just for a minute, think about, like, the diverse groupings of people that you are willing to take information from. Who are they and why? And where are there gaps in individuals that you can turn to? It might not be your fault, that, like, should be there ideally to get advice. Just think inwardly for a minute, for a bit. Yeah. Okay. So while you're doing this, and continue to do it, if you can turn to the person next to you, what should one be looking for when they're looking for someone to take advice from? Does that question make sense? Are there, like, characteristics or traits that we want to think of? Not just information, do you know, but actual advice. Hey, should I marry this person? Hey, do you think I would be good as, like, a father? What are things that you think I have to improve upon to actually be an effective leader or a spouse or a child or a sibling? What are things that make me a good friend? What are things that I could be doing better as a friend? Do you get what I mean? Advice is different from, like, where can I go to buy halal meat? Right? Information. Do you know? Where can I go to, like, find someone to help me rent an apartment? That might have an element of advice to it, but can also be informational. Do you see where it can be blended, right? But what are the kind of things I should be looking for in an advisor? Do you know? Deliberately, not by default. Some of you utilize resources in this community because you're just in the community, right? It doesn't have to function that way. because of the way technology functions these days. You can connect to people who can guide, coach, advise that are all over the world. Do you know? And it doesn't have to there was a man here the other day who was in the city from Malaysia because his daughter was getting married in our community. His daughter was marrying, she's in our community and the guy was in our community. And he was asking me questions about like people I've studied Islam with. So I said to him like different places and countries as well as locally. And I was remembering a teacher I had who was from India, and we just studied a text like over Zoom. Do you know? And why I remember it because he's like, the way he was taught when you like read Quran or memorized, he would like rock back and forth. Do you know what I mean? So we had a camera and he would like rock back and forth. So as we're like talking and he's like repeating a text, like his face would get small and his face would get big. And like his head, he had a big turban on. So like just his forehead with the turban. I was like, hey, Shaykh, I just want, like salute, right? But you can have advice from people. They don't have to be your next door neighbor. Do you get what I mean? And it doesn't also have to be like family or friends. Sometimes family and friends are the worst advisors because they hate seeing you in pain. They just want to say something that'll put a Band-Aid on something as opposed to really heal it. Do you get what I mean? So if I'm looking for some advisors that don't all have to be in one individual, what are some of the traits or characteristics that I want to look for? If we can turn to the persons next to us and talk that out a bit, and we'll come back and discuss. Go ahead. Okay, and while you're talking about this, add to the conversation, what are the areas in my life that I could potentially take advice in? Do you know? Like, how do I understand myself as a whole person? What are parts of myself that like could receive advice? Do you know? Whether I need it or not is a different thing, but just general understanding. Like, where can people take advice from, more broadly speaking? But go ahead. Yeah.
No, I think it's fine. Yeah, I think that's the parallel that I always
Okay, what are some of the things we would look for in an advisor, and what are some of the parts of my life that I could even take advice on? What are some of the things that we're discussing? Yeah, go ahead.
Sure. I was telling him that in terms of like general advice, I could show a little bit more vulnerability in terms of asking for help. Sometimes I like to take on a task all by myself. I was telling you like back even in high school, someone would tell me like asking for help is not like a sign of weakness. So yeah, for sure.
Yeah, right. It's as hard to ask for help as it is to ask for advice. You could see these kind of as categories and subcategories, do you know? But like, why? Do you know what I mean? And who benefits from you thinking you have to do everything on your own, or it's a shortcoming to lean on somebody? Do you know? People don't want people like us to learn how to work together. You know what I'm saying? Right? And you have to understand that like the systems that are built to make us hate ourselves, those guys are all working together really great. They look out for each other, they hire each other, they place each other in jobs, they get each other out of trouble, they get each other into schools and colleges, right? They don't have any trouble taking favors. Oh, your kid's not smart enough to get into school? Don't worry, we'll take him anyway, right? I'll do you a favor. And it's not like, oh my God, my reputation is tarnished because I went to this Ivy League because someone else pulled a favor for me. Do you know? You don't want to have a mindset that is purposeful as a minority in anti-black systems that get you to believe that your worth is only in doing it all on your own. Shaitan wants you to be isolated. He doesn't want you to be like drawing power that can only come from numbers. And we're not like in a place where we have to victimize ourselves, but in understanding the balance of clout is in another direction. And one of the few buckets of power that we can harness is numbers. Do you know? Everybody's got to do everything on their own. And then advice is not the same as negativity because you want to get behind people who believe in possibility, right? Zohran Mamdani is running for mayor. May Allah grant him tawfiq. Do you know what I'm saying? Right? Like he's got an energy that's very contagious. Do you know? But somebody could sit and give rise to the ego in a different way and start to just speak in what they think is intellectualizing a conversation. But in reality, they're just permeating a already frail kind of consciousness because of how kind of disenchanting and disenfranchising these systems purposely are, that make us believe even when there's something that's there, it's just a glimmer and it's going to fade too, and there's no point to it, right? That's not advice, do you know? That's shaitan using you as a tool for waswasa. May Allah protect us from it. Do you see? What else do we discuss? What do we look for, or what are areas that I could take advice in? What are kind of traits we want to look for in advisors? Yeah.
Characteristics to look for in advice. And the first one that comes to mind is trustworthiness. But it also calls to mind something I read about some time ago about there being 4 areas to trust: competence, character, consistency, and communication. And I think those all manifest. Are they competent in the area that you're asking about? Do they have good character, like good values in mind? Are they consistent in the way that they manifest that character? And do they communicate? Like you can't get advice from someone who's not properly communicating the advice.
100%. Great. Other thoughts? The 4 C's. Yeah. What else? What are areas that you could take advice in? Career? Yeah, great. What else? That's it? Yeah. Huh?
Family.
What does that mean?
Like working through family problems, stuff like that.
Okay. A lot of people have family issues. Do you know? Generalization I'm comfortable making. When people say, what do you see the most of in your office? I talk to people all day and all night, one-on-one, different parts of this country, different countries in the world. the gross majority of people that have family issues, either experiencing now or happened in the past, they've never healed from it. May Allah grant us healing. Understanding, like, advice is different from what we're saying, like a band-aid, the confronting of what it is that we hold and carry. Family also, like family planning, right? Family kind of like rearing and raising. Do you know what I mean? When my wife was pregnant with our first child, I went and asked a bunch of dads, what is it like to be a dad? What worked, what didn't work? Do you know what I mean? I've never been a father. Do you know? People used to say to me all the time, "Oh, you like take care of so many people's kids. You're gonna be a great dad." I don't know how to talk to 5-year-olds, right? Like the majority of people I started to talk to were at the age of 17 or 18, and then upwards. Do you know? Um, and then understanding like the notion of advisement, like how can I know how to be something I've never been before? Do you see? And I got to talk to people who have the competency and the capacity to communicate with a sincere conviction in that regard, right? But you can break these down in different buckets. Other thoughts on this? Like, what do I look for in an advisor, and what are areas I could take advice on? And I'm going to give like some generic things. Yeah.
If you are working in a blank slate, so say if you're like the eldest person in your family, or you don't have someone like a career mentor, like how do you know if you need someone, if they're the right person to talk to about anything that you need advice on?
Well, how do you attach it to humility? Because you're the one that said humility, right?
Well, you'd have to like, I guess, have a conversation with them and see if they're open to.
Well, the assumption is going to be through humility, I can always learn from somebody something. So if I need someone, is the question that you're asking, like, yeah, like I need somebody to continue to teach me how to grow in different ways. It doesn't mean I can't teach somebody something that I've learned, but there's always going to be room for me to have improvement on something. Do you see? The minute that I think I got it fully hands down, do you know? Like I played sports growing up. I got injured, so I couldn't continue into college. But I really like watching some like sports documentaries and things. If you've ever seen like sports documentary, I took my kids, my wife to see the Olympics in Paris. Do you know? We're watching these things and we're watching on TV, and you can see these people whose athleticism is so remarkable that like millions of people fly from over the world to watch them do what is miraculous, right? Like people don't watch basketball because they like, to watch people dribble a ball. They watch basketball to see people do things that they didn't know humans could do, right? And it's crazy the discipline can yield that. And when you look at people who are experts in their arenas, they still have coaches. Why? Why does LeBron James still have a coach? Why? Why did Kobe Bryant still have a coach? Ibtihaj Muhammad won a medal at the Olympics in fencing. Why does she have a coach? She is like on point with her training, right? We were having a conversation and I don't know what she was talking about, but at some point she said something about like, my saber of choice is this and that. And I was like, I've never heard anyone even use the word saber before. Like, what? Like, you, like, I'm scared of you. Do you know? Why does she have a coach? Do you know what I mean? If you are the fastest human being alive, why is there someone still teaching you how to run? Do you understand? You don't get to excellence if there's not a sense that refinement is part of the process. Do you see? And you have to be willing to acknowledge the growth trajectory that comes from, at some point, I'm not competing with everybody else. I'm just trying to get to the best version of me. And that's not the same as perfection. That's me recognizing my capacity to its fullest. Do you see? And then I can acknowledge the intentionality, the why of what it is that brings me to my work. A lot of people who are counselors and social workers and psychologists, they come to that work statistically because they have experienced pain themselves. And part of their healing process is to then go into the work to offer like healing to someone else as a mode for their own healing. Do you get what I mean? It could work, right? It's not that it doesn't, but it can't be the only thing. Do you see what I'm saying? Does that make sense? Right? And so all around us, there's people who still take advice. The Prophet of God is the best of creation, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He walks and clouds hover over his head to protect him from the sunlight. Do you see? Why is he asking Salama what he should do? Do you get what I mean? Other than maybe somebody's going to offer me perspective that'll broaden for me my decision making and my choices. The humility, and you fake it till you make it, is that I still have something to learn, even if I've gotten to the pinnacle of what people think. Why does LeBron James have a coach? Because he still has the capacity to be coached towards something. Do you get what I mean? And there's fluctuation. A 40-year-old man playing basketball is not the same as an 18-year-old man. He's got to be able to be open to advisement of different things. Does that make sense? A couple of things I'd throw out there generally that I think all of us would do well in like saving money to spend on in terms of advisement. One, like just physical wellness and nutrition would be a good thing to like take advice from people on, right? Because Allah entrusted this body to be what holds your soul in this world. Do you know? Why do you treat your body the way you treat it? Who told you that's a good idea? To eat what you eat, how much you eat, how often you eat. And it's not like to have kind of ideals of beauty that are rooted in whiteness. We're not talking about that. You're beautiful because Allah said He made you beautiful, and you have to embrace that as a reality. I'm just talking about the number of people when they get to a certain age, everything just hurts. Do you know? And there's not a sense of like, well, you're eating this thing that's going to create inflammation in your body, and you're eating it multiple times a day. You drink more caffeine than you drink water. The Hadith says 1/3 air, 1/3 food, 1/3 water, which means you should be drinking as much water as food that you're eating. Do you know? Like, who's advising you on your sleep habits specifically? The Prophet ﷺ, a sum total of his sleep over the course of the day, added up to about 7 to 8 hours. Some of these guys sleep like crazy amounts. Do you know? My son is like a walking almanac, and he throws facts at me all the time. And he's like, Baba, do you know how much Ronaldo sleeps? I'm like, no, I don't like spend my time. And the guy sleeps like 8 hours a night, but then takes 5 naps during the course of the day to help with his recovery. Do you know? It's different when you do it deliberately versus you just fell asleep at your desk and your body's telling you something. You want to invest time, which is still like a commodity, right? Even if you don't have the money to spend on it, you can read from experts. You can go to a library that is for free and get a library card and read books that are also for free that say, hey, it's stupid the way that I sleep. Makes no sense. And maybe that's why it's hard for me to take people's advice, because I'm always in this agitated state that has nothing to do with taking the advice, but like I just don't sleep well or eat well. Do you know? Another bucket that would be really great based off of data, like people that come to talk to me, no self-care plans, including physical wellness. Another bucket where you want to take advice is in financial planning that is rooted in our tradition. It's there. As much as there were people who didn't end the day with a dinar or dirham in their space, there were people who saved wealth, and you had to plan generationally, and you are built in systems that are meant to shackle you in debt and to create mindless consumption that has you overspend, that also attaches itself to things like eating and dressing and this kind of stuff. Do you get what I mean? And at some level, that's what these old white men are telling these young white boys. This is how you save this much money, put it into this kind of account or this kind of IRA for your kids at this time, and by the time they're 18, it'll have this much money. And by the time they're 55, it'll have this much money, right? So you turn to yourself and say, hey, I'm going to go to the talk that's on Hadith, and I'm going to go to the thing that talks about like this part of my identity and this part of this. But who am I going to talk to that within the confines of what is ethical and permissible in my religion is telling me how to create a dependency that doesn't have me then feel shackled when I work at a place that tells me I can't talk about Palestine? And I'm always worried about my sense of wellness and security. Do you get what I mean? And think about it objectively. Why do you spend and save in the ways that you spend and save? Who has ever taught you how to do that? And why not? Why are you not learning that from someone? Do you know? The same way around like eating and sleeping. How did you fall into the habit and the routine? Do you see? Musa alayhi salam, when he is with Khidr alayhi salam, after he's been pointed out like that Khidr has knowledge that Musa does not have. Musa alayhi salam wants to learn. It's embedded in luminaries in our tradition. He's not like, I'm good, I'm the messenger of God. Somebody else has something that I can benefit from. I want that for myself. And so he is directed towards Khidr, and they have different interactions. One of the interaction points involves a townspeople who treat them atrociously and do not honor the rights of guests. And Khidr, peace be upon him, starts to rebuild a wall in the town. And Musa alayhi salam doesn't question him. Throughout this journey, he's been asking, why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? And Khidr says to him, you're not supposed to ask questions. And here he doesn't ask a question, but he says, why don't you at least charge them for this? And he says, this is where our journey stops. And he gives explanations on all of the things that Musa was questioning, including of the rebuilding of this wall. At the base of it, there was righteous parents who had left wealth for their children. And had he not rebuilt it, the townspeople that treated them poorly would have rebuilt it. And in their excavation, they would have found the wealth and usurped it from the children. A couple of things we take from this, right? Children benefit from the righteous acts of their parents. So if you need motivation to get up and do what you have the ability to do, what you do will bring benefit to generations that come after you. I don't know why that's the case, but that's just how it is. These kids are being protected because they had good parents. Do you see? But relevant to this conversation, these righteous parents who were so righteous that Allah is sending Khidr and Musa, the most knowledgeable people in the world at that time, arguably, to protect them and build this wall. Their parents saved money for them. Do you understand? And they're described as righteous people. So you cannot make a claim that being righteous is about just like not having any of it. It's not a religion that is anti-wealth. It is anti-love of wealth, especially an unhealthy love of wealth. Do you know? And you start to think generationally where I can save. It doesn't have to be like huge amounts. And then communally, we start to think about these things. Do you see what I mean? Right? Building endowment structures, awqaf, that enable us to create financial independence and grow in a way that builds autonomy and clout. You can't buy into it at a communal level if you're not doing it for yourself individually. If I say to you all, after we build this and we buy this and grow this, we need to establish $100 million endowment for our community. How would you buy into the vision of that if you don't do it for yourself? Do you see? And it doesn't mean you can't go out and have a good time. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not telling you what you should do. I'm saying in an arena of advice, one of the people you want to get advice from are people who can tell you how to financially plan better, how to take advantage of tax systems, how to do things that people are empowering themselves as people of privilege quite often. Then why shouldn't we have that for ourselves too, right? And then you get into an arena of who's helping to advise you of your inner self, your heart. So religion is not an entertainment source, but it's a source of education. That I'm getting to a place where I actually act on what I know at a pace that makes sense for me. A good friend is not going to let a friend get away with being a bad person to other people. It's not fair that you have judges that say boys will be boys as college age white boys get away with assault and rape, and young black men who don't even do anything get thrown into jail and held on egregious like bails, and their lives get disrupted. Do you see what I mean? These guys are in a place where they are doing for each other in these ways, and they're not holding each other accountable. Just because you have a connection sociologically, racially, culturally, their family, they're a close friend, you like can acknowledge that they could do right by you, but still do wrong by somebody else. It's not advice, right? And you remember the hadith that we looked at before, ad-dinu nasiha, that the religion is sincere advice. This companion is coming. Awsini ya Rasulullah, give me counsel. You got to be the person who's ready to say it with wisdom, not throwing it at somebody, even if they don't want to hear it. And you got to be in a place where you're willing to take it, even if it's difficult and you don't want to listen to it. Do you get what I mean? In most situations, barring abuse and oppression, it takes two people to create a dynamic. And individually, there's parts of ourselves that we are creating dynamics with. You play a role into the state and healthiness of your heart and your spirit. Do you see what I mean? Who's helping you to know how to engage those things? Does that make sense? So as part of advice, you want to sit with it, go home, right at the top of a notebook. Who do I take advice from and why? And are those the people that I want to have advising me on certain things? Can somebody give me advice in one bucket and they're not then giving me advice on something else? This person can tell me how to financially plan. I don't need to like get advice from them on ethics and values. Do you see? Or maybe I do. Do you get what I'm saying? It's not like an all for nothing or nothing rather. So let's do this before we take a pause. Maghrib is going to come in 2 minutes. You can turn to the persons next to you. What are you taking away from this conversation so far? What is it bringing up? And we'll come back, discuss for a quick second, and then we'll wrap up and call the adhan. But go ahead.
Sure. I think
Okay, so let's do this just because Maghrib is coming in. We don't want to delay it. If people want to push their chairs against the wall, if you were fasting, feel free to grab a date from the table. And next week, we'll resume on the hadith. We'll talk about the aspects of ghadab that the Prophet ﷺ is saying to avoid, and look at different hadith that are about anger as well as Quran. But we'll do that next Monday, inshallah. Feel free to stick around and join us for iftar, even if you weren't fasting. Can somebody call the adhan? And we'll stand for Maghrib. Thank you, man. You okay?